Do you want to start?
Yeah, it's really very important. In the beginning of the, well, the beginning years back in the 80s, what I always did was to require them to read at least 1 or 2 books that dealt just with the history of the country as the beginning point. And so, like, we did a lot of the Arab League because we went to Washington for about 15 years in a row, and out of the 15 years, 11 of those 15, we were picked the outstanding university in attendance. And if we began either with a history of the individual country or a biography, if there was one available, of the president of the country or the leading sheikh, whoever were the leaders in the government, they would have to read biographies of them. Because in order to understand the contemporary events, it was essential that they had a historical background, particularly representing countries like Middle Eastern countries where it was necessary to have an understanding of Islam in order to be able to deal with the current political, economic, and social issues of the day.
Excellent, thank you.
Can I ask you, what, you know, kind of looking back since it started in the 1980s, what's one specific, can you remember, issue that you felt was particularly, you know, difficult for the students or highly controversial? I mean, was there anything that stands out in your mind, Dr. Bergeron?
Yeah, there are several over the years. I think probably one of the most difficult was the year that we represented Libya at the Model Arab League in Washington. It was the year in which Libya was bombed during the Reagan administration, and one of Colonel Gaddafi's children were killed. And so we were representing a country that wasn't recognized by the United States, a country that was not even accepted generally by other members of the Arab League. And so our students had to operate without much support from other countries. And I think that was a great challenge, particularly since the bombing occurred during the time that we were actually representing the country in D.C. And some of those kids have gone on who were a part of that group. One of them is Roger Cressy, who you will see now quite often on NBC News.
Sure.
He is now the expert for NBC News on counterterrorism. And you will see him quite often on NBC when any issues about counterterrorism are being discussed. Roger will be the one that they will be talking to about these issues today. So yeah, he went from that in the 80s to where he is today.
Wow.
And there are many others stories that are very similar to that.
Lee?
You've won so many awards with the Model UN, and I know that you are all really close with your students too. What are the qualities that you look for in students or that would like to join?
I think, you know, any students who are willing, who are interested in international affairs, who are greatly motivated, should join the Model League. We are particularly looking for students who are hardworking and who really are passionate about international affairs, and not just that, who are interested in improving their research writing skills and their public speaking skills.
You might think that we would say that we really wanted people who were really outgoing and good public speakers and all of that, and that is not necessarily true at all. Yes. So many times we've seen where we have a student who comes and they freeze. They're really very nervous about public speaking, and they think, oh, I can't do this, and I'm not going to be able to do it. And it's happened time after time where the first time that we do the videotaping, where they freeze up and they make mistakes, and then we critically evaluate it, and gradually they get over it, and they go from being public speaking frozen to winning outstanding performance awards. And I've seen this happen many, many times over the last 25 years.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Yes, even this year we have one student who is just scared to death, and after being to one conference, I mean, you can see instant change in his behavior. He became a very passionate speaker.
We'd like to take a short break now. You're joining us for Eye on You with the Model United Nations program. We have Dr. Bergeron and Dr. Tong Moon join us, and our students from the University of Massachusetts Lowell, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Thank you.
My name's Jane Benfi, and I'm the site director of the International Institute of Lowell. So I'm the director of our Lowell office. International Institute of Lowell is 88 years old, has been doing immigration services since 1918, but we are now part of, since 2002, we've been part of the International Institute of Boston, which is much larger, and also has a site in New Hampshire. We have a full-time immigration attorney who works with immigrant clients in the city with all kinds of needs, low-income immigrant clients. We have an employment program that works with newly arrived refugees and people who've won political asylum and help them become U.S. citizens. And then we have a citizenship program that teaches free citizenship classes and helps people of any ethnic group fill in forms and apply to become citizens. The mission is really to help immigrants and refugees integrate into the life that they're going to be building in the United States. We don't talk about assimilating people, but we do want them to integrate successfully so that they can become economically self-sufficient, learn enough English to build a good life, and learn whatever it is they need to learn to eventually become American citizens so that they can vote, so that they can fully participate. I would say the first thing for most immigrants and refugees is language. Finding jobs if your work experience isn't directly relevant to the U.S. economy can be very difficult. Refugees go to refugee camps that are run by the United Nations, and they may stay there anywhere from a few months to decades. The United Nations then decides what country they're going to go. If they're coming to the United States, the U.S. Department of State assigns them to voluntary agencies that resettle them. And for our Cambodian population, which, as you know, is very high in Lowell, the International Institute of Lowell did refugee resettlement in the 1980s, and we're still seeing families come in for those refugees. We've recently been seeing Vietnamese refugees who had been in a camp in the Philippines for 16 years. So what the UN is doing is trying to make their lives as tenable as possible. The healthcare, food, water, sanitation issues are taken care of by the UN with, and the fact is that the conditions are often what you or I would consider deplorable, but they are adequate to maintain life while decisions are being made. 2/3 of Americans say that we shouldn't jail people who employ, we should be welcoming and offer guest worker status. So I think many Americans are just really torn. We want to be a welcoming country. That's in our nature. And we all know that we're a nation of immigrants. But at the same time, people are frightened.
Hi, I'm Cassie Robico, and I'm here with 3 UMass Lowell students. To my left is Jason Carter. Jason is a graduate student in the RESD department. To my right is Danielle Banks. Danielle is also a graduate student in the RESD department. And next to her is Susan Agassi, who is an undergraduate. She's a double major political science, psychology, and a minor of gender studies. Thank you for joining our show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
They're all international members of the International Relations Club at UMass Lowell, and we're going to start with Jason, and he's going to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm very lucky to have been involved with the International Relations Club, both through my undergrad and into my graduate work. For 2 years, I was the president of the club. Got to see a lot of different places, do a lot of different things. It's been one of the real formative parts of my education, and I really attribute a lot of my success, both as an undergrad and as a graduate student, to the International Relations Club.
Susan, why don't you tell us a little bit